Hey YouTube, welcome back. This is going to be another Crime Couples episode, and today we're going to be looking at the Powell family. Disappearances, the deaths surrounding the family. It is a very, very controversial, very intriguing case.
So Josh Powell was born on January 20th, 1976 to parents Stephen and Terica Powell. Right from the start, we hear that the marriage was very rocky. Stephen was very, very odd and bizarre. He had a very big dissociation with the LDS Church, which is the Mormon religion, and the family is they're all Mormon followers. There's some weird things that he did in the family. He was showing the boys porn at very young age. There was very little parenting done because Stephen was very controlling, as Josh learned this from his dad. And there was very little parenting. So the kids were basically able to run rampant. Josh was very bizarre as a child. I guess we were reading that he had killed some family pets. He drowned one of his sister's gerbils.
Poor gerbil.
He threatened his mom with a butcher knife because she said that he needed to do the dishes.
I threaten Ashley all the time.
What? Is that right? I can understand joking around, be like, Mom, I'm gonna cut you. But he was literally serious. So in 1998, he was living in Seattle and attending the University of Washington. Here he met his first girlfriend, and her name is Catherine Everett. Very soon after they started dating, they moved into an apartment together, and she later reports that things were very, very bizarre and rocky from the beginning. It sounds like an ongoing, repetitive thing. Very bizarre family. He was very controlling, very restrictive. She wanted to go visit her parents, and he objected. He said, I need to go with you. He controlled everything she did. And this was his first relationship. So he didn't venture far when he met Susan Cox. There was a little gathering at his Tacoma apartment, and it was I think it was involving the LDS Church. But he met Susan Cox, and she was part of the LDS Church as well, so he found that in common with her. They met in November, I believe, of 2000, and they began a relationship very quickly, and it advanced. Within 6 months, by April of 2001,
They got hitched.
They were married.
And so, a brief time after the wedding, Josh and Susan moved in with Josh's father, Stephen, and his parents, Josh's parents, Stephen, and his mom. His mom had a weird name. What was
Terica.
Terica. So they got divorced in 1992 because, as we said, Stephen was like a complete freako.
Weird.
So they moved in with him, and they were living in South Hill, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So while living there, they had some issues that came up. So they had some problems come up. Stephen started expressing some really weird infatuation with Susan.
Obsessive, crazy stuff.
He was spying on her. He had hidden cameras set up. He would always film, try to take pictures, sneak pictures of her. He put a mirror in the bathroom so he could see when she was showering.
Door.
Yeah, so he could see when she was showering, watching her change. He would steal her underwear. He would even go as far as, before the kids were born, he would even go as far as reading pornographic journals to her throughout the house.
She's sitting there doing dishes, and he's reading these sexual, perverse journals to her. Your father-in-law.
He even created songs under a pseudonym name that he would put out or whatever make.
These weren't love songs. These were
extremely perverse songs,
sexual.
Very sexual, and just very odd. I mean, definitely nothing that you would think a father-in-law would do. And it became so much an obsession. What was it? At a certain point, he professed his love to her.
Yeah, it was 2003. So they had been there for a little bit, and he basically professed his love.
Dude took a shot, got denied.
You're married to my son, but
So
let me see.
After that happened, the family had a lot of issues, obviously. So it actually caused the family to hey, we gotta get out. And so the family packed up their stuff and actually moved to Utah. So Josh had a bachelor's degree in business, and he worked for multiple different companies over the years. Now, Susan was actually a trained licensed cosmetologist. However, she was practicing. She wasn't practicing when they moved to Utah. When they were in West Valley City, she was actually working at a Wells Fargo. And then they went on to have 2 kids. They had their first son, Charles. He was born in 2005, and their second son, Braden, born in 2007.
So Susan's journal and email correspondence with people really let on that the marriage was on the rocks. There was tension between his refusal to attend the church services with his family. He was a crazy spender. He was even seen at the casino spending money. And the family was very, very tight on their budget, as you will soon hear. He was very controlling, to say the least. He gave Susan basically like a stipend, like, here, go grocery shopping with this amount. She was, punished and, reprimanded for even spending like a few dollars extra. They had made an example. The kidney beans were like 4 cents cheaper at another store, but she was getting all her groceries at one, and he yelled at her because he had a list of all the groceries, and the one she logged in the spreadsheet wasn't the one that he wanted her to go get, so she got yelled at for like 4 cents. Susan was even known to call friends and borrow food. She had borrowed hot dogs from a neighbor because her boys were starving. I mean, that's really odd. You feed little boys, especially they're growing. As a child, Charlie was diagnosed with malnutrition when he went to a pediatrician visit. So this is just evident of he's so controlling that he's not even allowing his children to grow. He had made a comment that, this is verbatim, that they don't need to eat more than 1 meal a day because they will just poop it out.
Dieting tips.
Where is that okay in the Parenting 101 guideline? I don't know. So she was, like I talked about earlier, she was made to, spend very small amount on food, and then she had to log everything on a spreadsheet. And like we said, Josh had to approve it. So, I mean, this is a very controlling household. I mean, just from what we've covered so far. The family was forced to file bankruptcy in 2007. And it was documented that they were in over $200,000 debt. I mean, if y'all have a house, you have vehicles, I understand that, but this was on top of just their mortgage and stuff. So he had some crazy spending, but then he's controlling where she gets kidney beans. Like, this is not okay. In 2008, she took a video to document basically property damage done by Josh, one of his like violent outbursts. She made an ominous statement that said, "I want it documented that there is extreme turmoil in our marriage, and if I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one." How weird is that?
It's very creepy.
That is very creepy. And then we'll find out.
So on the morning of December 6, 2009, Susan and the boys were doing their normal thing. They were attending church, regular service, going through their regular habits. Later that afternoon, a neighbor of theirs, Giovanna Owings, had come over. Susan had been knitting a blanket for one of her sons, Charlie, and apparently it all got tangled up, and Giovanna, the neighbor, was going to come over and help her untangle it. We were talking about how not like it's pertinent to the story, but it's just weird that you'd have someone come help you untangle
yarn.
But I guess
like he was saying, if you have all this turmoil and animosity and craziness in your house, like
something simple like that is probably
really
nice.
Exciting to have somebody nice come talk to you and stuff. So
they were making dinner. Pancakes. They said pancakes and eggs were on the menu. And Josh was cooking, which is kind of odd, and he had the boys helping him. And so I think Giovanna even reported that he was being like unnormally nice. Like usually he's very controlling.
It's all about me personality.
Yeah, he's very short with the kids kind of thing, but he was being very patient. He was having them help. I think it was even noted like Susan was saying she was cold and he offered to get her a blanket, like out of the way nice. So it was very unnormal for him.
And Giovanna noticed it. She's like, basically, what is up with him?
He did have a little bit of like, still kind of his normal way. I think she had been invited to stay over for dinner. And she was like, okay, I'll get my husband and my kids. And he's kind of like, no, we only have enough for you. So, it's still kind of weird to invite someone knowing they have family right next door and they can't come, which is odd. But
you eat and stay. They can fend for themselves, basically.
Other than that, he was acting completely different than how he normally was.
Right. So at around 5 p.m. after dinner, Giovanna went home and Susan said she wanted to lay down for a nap. So around 5:30, Josh grabbed the boys and said, we're going sledding. So at 8:30, he came home and the neighbors had said that that's when he returned home. 3 hours later, a neighbor, his name was Marco Bastidas, he was locking up his car, getting stuff for the morning, and he heard a car alarm and kind of like ruckus in the closed garage of the Powell family. Now he mentioned it to his sister and she's like, should we go over and see if everything's okay? And he's like, nah, it's late, let's not. So he kind of lets it go. Meanwhile, another neighbor on that same evening knew something was amiss in the Powell home. She said she heard angry noises and angry voices coming from the family home, and she said she later regrets not phoning the authorities in this. On December 7th, between 9 and 10 a.m., the Powell's daycare provider got really concerned because they're like clockwork. If it was anything having to do with the kids and regiment, Josh was very on time with everything. So they didn't show up for daycare. So the daycare workers were like, hey, what's going on? They're not here. Are they sick? So they try to phone Susan and Josh and nobody answers. So then their next, I think, phone call was to Terica, which is Josh's mom, and his sister, Jennifer Graves. So they went to the home to kind of see what was going on, why they weren't at daycare. The house was locked and they were unable to get a hold of Susan or Josh. So they called the police. The police came over and, kind of had the idea of, is it carbon monoxide poisoning? The cars are there, or the car is there. Nobody's answering, so they bust in the house and nobody's there. But there is a giant wet stain on the couch and there's 2 box fans blowing on it. Like, I don't know what would get wet on the couch. I mean, I know they have young kids, but I mean, that's just odd to me to have 2 box fans. Like, what is he trying to cover up? So they were not able to find anyone in the home and they had no idea what was going on. Susan also didn't show up for work that day. And it was odd because the authorities found her wallet, her purse, her ID, and all her identification at the home. So where did she go? Later that day around 5 p.m., Josh returned with the boys and the police were there and took him to the police station. So at the police station, Josh claims that he left Susan shortly after midnight on December 2nd. He left her at home to go camping with the boys at Simpson Springs in western Utah. So it's midnight and the boys want s'mores. So let's pack up and go camping in a blizzard.
Sounds like a good idea.
At 2 and a 4-year-old. They want s'mores. You know what? S'mores are very easy to make in the microwave.
It's also very easy to say, no, you're 2 and 4 years old. You don't need to be awake at midnight. Go to bed.
But that was another thing. The kids stayed up until all hours of the night. Just like in Josh's family, there was very little parenting done by Josh. And we know that he's the controlling one. So Susan wasn't able to, help parent the boys because Josh was so controlling over everything. So as he's talking to the police, they said, we went there. They went there 3 days later and found there was no evidence of them being there.
And I think they did that without him knowing about it, to like kind of see if he was telling the truth or not.
Well, I mean, I would too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's saying that at midnight he took a 2 and 4-year-old to go to a campsite. So they said that since there had been a snowstorm, you can tell if there had been tracks. I mean, it's a very good indicator if someone was there. And they said it was just fresh snowfall. There were no tracks indicating anyone had been there for at least a week.
No fire, nothing like.
Right. So, and another thing, like, it was Sunday night, so at midnight. So it was going into Monday. The police were like, why would you go camping if you were supposed to go to work in a few hours?
Because...
And he responded with this generic, lame-ass response. He said that he must have got his days mixed up. That he's like, oh, it's Monday? I thought it was Sunday. So, I mean, right off the bat, his excuses are just really lame, and there's no supportive evidence behind that.
It's such a far-fetched idea of a story to me.
When you have young kids, every day is like regimented. Like, you don't just forget what day it is. So on December 10th, neighbors and friends, she was still missing. They held a candlelight vigil, and Josh was seen, crying, shedding some disingenuous tears for the cameras.
So the investigation process starts, and upon investigating the home, this started on December 9th, they did find traces of Susan's blood on the floor. Now they did have some trace DNA they were able to match it to that they used for identifying this. They also did, however, find DNA of an unknown male contributor. So we don't know who that is on that, but they found that there was someone else's DNA. 3 days after her disappearance, Josh starts trying to cash in on everything, right? So he goes after her $1.5 million life insurance, starts liquidating some of the assets, starts canceling some of her all of her appointments, right? Pulls the kids out of daycare, starts doing all this stuff. And again, this is 3 days after.
He knows something.
He started pulling into her 401k, retirement accounts, all this different kind of crazy stuff, right? So, and he had previously spoken to coworkers about how he could get away with murder by hiding a body in the mine shafts in Utah. So it's like... And
they're all over. I was reading, there's a lot of mine shafts, and if they go unused or they've mined everything that they can, like, these are hundreds of feet down in the ground. I've never seen one, I've never been near one, but from what I was reading, they're deep and they're not used again for years. So, I mean, how hard would it be to just dump a body in there?
The police obviously wanted to get as much insight on this as they could. They did interview Charlie, the older son. I don't think it was mentioned. Actually, I think they said it's not mentioned whether or not Braden was interviewed. Of course, he was 2 years old at the time. It was very hard to do that. Charlie,
I read that they did like pictures with him.
Right.
So that it was easier for him to,
but still,
say.
You know what I mean? But so Charlie was 4, so he did talk. He was able to confirm that they went camping, right? He said that he went camping. However, he said that mommy, Susan, went along with them, but did not return with them. So Josh had said, they left her at home. So those were two conflicting things right away. And later, Charlie did mention to his teacher at school or the daycare, that he knew his mom was dead. So she ended up reporting that, of course. And also Braden, farther down the line, he was drawing and whatnot, as little 2-year-olds will do, and he drew a picture of their family van with him, his brother Charlie, their dad Josh, and their mom in the trunk. And he had said, mommy's in the trunk, right? So between these two kids, you kind of get this idea and a picture that something really bad happened.
Yeah.
So investigators informed the media that Joshua was going to be questioned again about everything, and they wanted to gather all the footage and interviews that were aired and unaired by the local television stations, things that he's been doing, talking about his wife's disappearance. This was all going to be used to go over questions with him. Joshua did go ahead and hire an attorney to help along with the investigation process and kind of keep him, where he needed to be. And police said from this point, he just became extremely uncooperative with everything they tried to do. So at this point, Josh goes ahead and takes the kids to Puyallup, where his father lives. And so he goes to stay up there. And then later at a point, it was January 6, 2010. So quite, like a month or so, not even a month afterwards, him and his brother, Josh's brother Michael, went back to the house in Utah to kind of pack up everything, which means that, showing that they're permanently moving to where his father lives.
Puyallup. Say that 3 times fast.
So while the family had moved to Puyallup, they were staying with his father, Stephen, his brothers, and his sister, Alina. The brothers were Jonathan and Michael. Now, Michael was turning into somewhat of a person of interest with the police. He has a pretty extensive background. He's a very smart guy for what they said. They think that he had a part to do with this. There was even a point where Michael and his sister Alina went to Utah at some point in their vehicle, and on the way back it broke down. It's a Ford Taurus, and there were some complications with getting it towed back to where it needed to be in a specific spot, not another place, where he ended up leaving the car and selling it off real cheap because it had broken down.
It was $100.
Yeah.
I heard that. I listened to a podcast, Cold, and that's really awesome. If you guys want to listen to a very, very,
very in-depth
thing about this, I mean, it's 3 episodes and they're each 60 minutes long. So he sold his car for $100, and the guy who was buying the vehicle was like $100. Like, he normally got broke down stuff and he took the parts and made money that way. Well, this was a working vehicle that I think they just wanted to obviously offload very quickly. And
they said they had transmission issues, but we're not really sure about that. We kind of think that it was kind of just like a way to get rid of the car.
Right.
So when the police caught wind of this, they thought it was kind of odd that they did this or whatever. They ended up bringing cadaver dogs out to the vehicle at the salvage yard, and they did have hits of like a decomposing body was in there, and I think they found like a DNA hair sample. However, when they tested it, it wasn't conclusive of whether it was Susan's or not. So that wasn't, a positive hit in the right direction. Still, though, he remained in the loop quite a bit.
Him and Josh were very close. They had a lot of email correspondence, and the police tried to obtain these, but they were all encrypted. Like, there was just weird conversations.
A lot of secrecy.
Yeah, between, and what are they hiding?
So, with all the tension and stuff, there had been some people that had come out and started saying some things about Josh and what kind of person he was. So he had to go through a series of different evaluations that were court ordered. One of those was like a psych evaluation, and that was performed by James Manley. And he had determined, and even though from the outside looking in, it seemed like Josh was a good father, he, had a good steady job, things like that, it did come back that he had some paranoia, narcissistic traits. He was really overbearing on the kids, and with everything going on, they did go ahead and put down an initial recommendation that Joshua would need to have visitation rights only, and they would need to be supervised
by a social worker.
Right.
And they said that they could be a few times a week, and they were supposed to be held in like a neutral, public, but still private place, not in the home residence.
However, in the week of January 2012, Utah discovered 400 simulated child pornographic video pictures, what have you,
bestiality, just weird
on his computers and stuff like that. So yeah, that happened, which obviously apple doesn't fall too far from the tree when daddy's the same way. His dad, Stephen, is a mess.
So the supervised house visits were going well. The social worker, her name was Elizabeth Giffen Hall. She said she was pulling up on February 5th, 2012. She had a lot of stuff. The boys were really excited. they go run in the house, and Joshua lets them in, and she's kind of lagging behind. But when she gets up to the door, he looks at her and gives her this like smirk and slams the door in her face.
Locks the door.
He locks the door. She pounds on the door. He does not allow her to come in. So she contacts her supervisor, lets her know what's going on, and soon thereafter she calls 911. Now this call,
it pisses you off.
To say it nicely, I mean, I don't understand how this dispatcher doesn't get it.
He doesn't understand like the elevation of how serious the situation is at all.
Right, and could these boys have been saved or alive at this point? I mean, probably not. I mean, if Josh didn't succeed today, he probably would have tried another day. But I mean, it's very disheartening and it's sad. And
so we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to put a clip in of the 911 call so you can hear it.
It's actually like a longer call, but we're just going to put in the important part. And I think y'all will see that the connection with the social worker and the dispatcher, there's a disconnect.
Hey, I'm on a supervised visitation for a court-ordered visit, and something really weird has happened. The kids went into the house, and the parent, the biological parent, whose name is Josh Powell, will not let me in the door. What should I do? Nothing like this has ever happened before at these visitations, so I'm really shocked, and I could hear one of the kids crying, but he still wouldn't let me in. You can't find me by GPS?
No.
But I think I need help right away. He's on a very short lease with CSHS, and CPS has been involved, and this is the craziest thing. He looked right at me and closed the door. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm just waiting to know where you are.
Okay. It's 8119 189th Street, Court East, Puyallup, 98375. And I'd like to pull out of the driveway because I smell gasoline and he won't let me in.
You want to pull out of the driveway because you smell gasoline, but he won't let you...
He won't let me in.
He won't let you out of the driveway?
He won't let me in the house.
Whose house is
Got the
it?
kids in the house and he won't let me in. It's a supervised visit.
I understand. Whose house is it?
Josh Powell.
Okay, so you don't live there, right?
No, I don't. No, I'm contracted to the state to provide supervised visitation.
I see. Okay. And who is there to exercise their visitation?
I am. And the visit is with Josh Powell.
And who
And
supervises?
he is the husband that I supervise.
So you supervise and you're doing the visit?
Yeah,
You're
I
supervising yourself?
I supervise myself. I'm the supervisor here.
Wait a minute. If it's a supervised visit, you can't supervise yourself. If you're the
I
visitor...
do supervise myself. I'm the supervisor for the supervised visit.
Okay, well, aren't you the one making the visit? Or is there another
I'm the
parent
one-
that you're supervising?
No, I'm the one that supervises. I pick up the kids at their grandparents.
Yes. And then who visits with the children?
Josh Powell.
Okay, so you're supposed to be there to supervise Josh Powell's visit with the children.
Yes, that's correct.
And how did...
And he's the husband of missing Susan Powell. This is a high-profile case.
How did he gain access to the children before you got there?
I was one step in back of them.
Okay, so they went into the house and then he locked you out.
Yeah, he shut the door right in my face.
All right, now it's clear. Your last name? All right, we'll have somebody look for you there.
Okay, how long will it be?
I don't know, ma'am. They have to respond to emergency, life-threatening situations first. The first available deputy
Well,
is
this
responding.
could be life-threatening. He went to court on Wednesday, and he didn't get his kids back. And this is really, I'm afraid for their lives.
Okay, has he threatened the lives of the children previously?
I have no idea.
All right, we'll have the first available deputy contact you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello?
Hi, ma'am. Were you calling about the fire in the 8200 block of
Yes, he
188th Street,
exploded
Court?
the house.
Ma'am,
Yes,
do you know
he exploded the house.
do you know the exact address of the house, or are you
Yes,
supposed...
it's 8119 189th Street, Court East,
Okay.
2 hours.
Okay, stay on line. Do you know if anyone's in the house?
Yes, there was a man and
Okay.
2 children. I just dropped off the children, and he wouldn't let me in the door.
Okay, stay on line for the fire department. Okay, I'm going to get them on the line. Do not hang up. Hold on.
So all y'all have heard the 911 call, and it's very, very disheartening, like I said. So the social worker, you know, as soon as she got to the door, she wasn't let in, and she smelled gas. So, I mean, there wasn't a car running, so she was talking to the dispatcher. She said she wants to move her vehicle. There's no connection there. So soon thereafter, the house exploded, killing Josh and the 2 children. The authorities have treated this case as a double murder suicide. They said the act did appear deliberate. So after a brief investigation, the authorities did confirm that it was deliberate. There were 2 5-gallon gas cans on the premises, and gas was just spread throughout the house. The bodies were found in the center of the home all together. And initially, they had thought that the boys, just went to sleep, whatnot, but they did discover a hatchet next to the boys. It was noted that coroner said that the boys had hatchet marks on their neck. Now, I don't know if this was like a saving grace, like was he trying to knock them out so that they didn't burn and feel pain? I don't know.
I don't get that at all.
This is just very sad.
And it did say they actually died from carbon
monoxide. So breathing in the gas. So they felt...
The hatchet marks didn't even kill the kids.
Right. They felt everything. And I always get sensitive when it comes to kids. Like
That's my biggest weakness.
Right. But we've done Darlie Routier and now Josh Powell. So after this happened, the authorities tried to contact Stephen Powell, who was in jail at the time, to let him know basically what happened. Stephen invoked his Fifth Amendment right, not wanting to answer any questions about Susan or the boys, or if he knew anything prior to this happening. They were able to look through his hard drives, and they were in the car, but they were able to get evidence. And so friends and relatives of Josh, they did find in their email basically a goodbye note. It said, "This is where my money is. This is how to shut off my utilities." I guess they found out like 3 days before this happened that all their toys and stuff had been donated. So this is something that Josh was planning. And like I said, if he didn't succeed today, I'm certain he would have attempted again.
So Charles and Braden are buried at Woodbine Cemetery. There's also like a little
makeshift memorial for Susan.
Yeah, and Josh's remains were cremated. So this story goes quite a bit deeper on the backside with the Powell family and what all kind of goes through there, through Stephen's trials and the what did and did not Michael, the other son, kind of do and whatnot. So there's a lot of information that doesn't pertain to this individual story that we're talking about, and it's kind of like it branches off. However, Michael did end up taking his own life.
He jumped off a building in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so bad way to go. Stephen, the father, ended up dying in prison of natural causes, they say, but he did pass away. And then for a while, it's actually been recently updated, but for a while they were still considering Susan a missing person, except for March 2018, they did go ahead and
declare her dead.
Yeah, would mean, cause and means being homicide. They still have not found the body. They still have not found any remains, but at this point, for the length of time it's been, they declared her dead.
So this is just a really sad story about a very bizarre family, starting from the parents. And, it truly does show that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
So, like I said earlier, there's a lot of other things that you can dive into with this. It kind of branches off in different directions. There are other really good podcasts out there.
Crime Junkie that's the one I listen to, like I said, on the daily. And that's a really good one to listen to as well.
So, you can dive into a little bit more if you want to do that. On this one, we were just kind of focusing on Susan and, you know, the family deaths and what all occurred there. So we appreciate everyone watching and everyone taking the time to give us some feedback. We really do enjoy it. One thing we do need you to do is we need to make sure you hit subscribe button right now. So hit the subscribe button.
So you can get future episodes coming out.
Hit the like button so that we, you know, it helps us out a lot. It helps YouTube know that, you know, that we're doing something right, and we enjoy the comments. So, you know, if there's something else you know and you want to comment down below, please do. We enjoy that. We enjoy reading those. So thank you very much for all the support, and look forward to talking to you next time.
See you next time.